I have 4 wheat pennies in front of me right now, all from the same decade, all from the World War II era. But when I examined the last 2 coins under magnification, I found something that stopped me in my tracks. Errors that most people miss, varieties that experts hunt for, and values that reach 5 figures at auction. Let me show you what separates these 4 coins and why the final 2 deserve your complete attention. Let's start with coin number 1, the 1940 1-wheat penny. Now at first glance, the 1940 1-wheat penny looks completely ordinary. You have got Lincoln's portrait on the front, the 2 wheat stalks on the back, and the date 1941 clearly visible. Nothing unusual, nothing rare. Just another old copper penny that millions of Americans spent during one of the most critical periods in history. But here is what you need to understand about 1941 and why this year matters so much. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was attacked. America entered World War II. Everything changed overnight. The entire country shifted into wartime mode. Factories stopped making cars and started making tanks. Women entered the workforce in record numbers. And the U.S. Mint was working around the clock to produce enough coins to keep the wartime economy running. Every single penny minted in 1941 was struck during this pivotal moment in American history. These coins were in the pockets of soldiers heading overseas. They were used to buy war bonds. They passed through the hands of factory workers building planes and ships. This is not just a coin. This is a piece of World War II history. In 1941, 3 mints were producing wheat pennies. Philadelphia, with no mint mark, struck over 887 million coins. Denver, with a D mint mark, struck around 128 million. And San Francisco, with an S, struck approximately 92 million. Those are massive numbers. The country needed copper. The country needed coins. And the mints delivered hundreds of millions of pennies to support the war effort. Because of that high production, most people assume 1940 1-wheat pennies are common and worthless. But that assumption is wrong. Because while the mintage numbers are high, the number of coins that survived in top condition is very low. Most 1941 pennies were spent heavily during the war years. They were worn down, scratched, dropped, and beaten up. Finding a sharp, uncirculated 1940 1-wheat penny today with full original red color and crisp details is genuinely difficult. Here is what the values look like. A 1941 Philadelphia penny with no mint mark in average circulated condition is worth about 10 to 25 cents. Not much, but still above face value. A 1941 D from Denver in the same condition is worth 15 to 30 cents. And a 1941 S from San Francisco, the lowest mintage of the 3, is worth 20 to 40 cents in circulated grades. But now let me show you where the real money is. If you find a 1941 wheat penny in uncirculated condition with full red color, meaning the coin was never spent during the war and still has its original copper luster, the value jumps dramatically. A 1941 Philadelphia penny in MS65 red condition is worth $20 to $50. In MS66, that number climbs to $80 to $150. And the finest MS67 examples have sold for over $500 at major auctions. A 1941 D in MS65 red is worth $30 to $60. In MS66, you are looking at $100 to $200. And MS67 examples have crossed $800. The 1941 S, because of its lower mintage, commands even stronger premiums. MS65 red brings $40 to $80. MS66 can hit $150 to $300. And the finest MS67 examples have sold for over $1,500. $1,500 for a penny from 1941. But wait, because there is one more thing you need to know about 1941 pennies. Errors. Some 1941 wheat pennies were struck with doubled dies. If you look at the date, the word Liberty, or In God We Trust under magnification, and you see clear doubling or a shadow effect, you might have a coin worth $50 to $200 even in circulated condition. Other 1941 pennies have been found with repunched mint marks where the D or S was stamped twice at slightly different angles. These varieties are collectible and add value. And then there are off-center strikes and clipped planchets. A 1941 penny with a dramatic off-center strike can bring $100 to $300 depending on how severe the error is. So what should you check right now if you have 1941 wheat pennies? First, look for the mint mark. It is located below the date on the obverse. No mint mark means Philadelphia. D means Denver. S means San Francisco. Second, check the condition. Are the wheat stalks on the reverse sharp and fully separated? Is Lincoln's portrait clear with visible hair details? Does the coin still have its original red copper color, or has it turned brown? Third, examine the coin under magnification. Look at the date and the lettering. Do you see any doubling? Check the mint mark. Does it look like it was stamped more than once? A common circulated 1941 wheat penny is worth 10 to 40 cents. But a high-grade red example is worth $50 to $1,500 depending on the mint mark and grade. And an error variety can bring hundreds, even in average condition. Do not overlook 1941 just because the mintage numbers are high. This coin carries World War II history in its copper. And condition plus errors are what creates serious value. Now we move to 1944 D. And this is where the World War II story gets even more intense. Because 1944 was the height of the war. D-Day had just happened. Allied forces were pushing across Europe. And back home, the U.S. Mint was facing a copper shortage so severe that it almost changed wheat pennies forever. Stay with me, because what I am about to show you is where serious money starts appearing. Coin number 2, the 1944 D wheat penny from Denver. Here is what you need to understand about 1944. Copper was critical to the war effort. It was used for shell casings, wiring, ammunition, and military equipment. Every ounce of copper was needed on the front lines. So in 1943, the U.S. Mint made a drastic decision. They stopped making copper pennies and started making steel pennies instead. The famous 1943 steel cent. But by 1944, the war effort had adjusted. Spent shell casings were being collected and melted down. And the U.S. Mint returned to making copper pennies using recycled ammunition shells from World War II battlefields. That means every single 1944 wheat penny you hold in your hand was literally made from the metal of war. These coins are not just currency, they are pieces of recycled World War II history cast into pennies. Now in 1944, the Denver Mint struck over 430 million wheat pennies. That is a massive number. The country needed coins. The economy was roaring with wartime production. And Denver delivered. Because of that high mintage, most 1944 D pennies are worth very little in circulated condition. About 10 to 20 cents. Face value plus a small premium. But here is where things change. Not all 1944 D pennies are the same, and the difference comes down to one critical factor: what metal the coin was struck on. During the transition from steel back to copper in 1940, for a tiny number of steel planchets, leftover blanks from 1943 accidentally got mixed into the copper production. Some 1944 pennies were struck on steel planchets by mistake. These are called 1944 steel cents, and they are one of the most famous errors in American numismatics. A 1944 steel cent from any mint is worth thousands of dollars. But the 1944 D steel cent, struck at Denver on a leftover steel blank, is extremely rare. Only a handful are known to exist. And when one surfaces at auction, collectors go absolutely wild. A certified 1944 D steel cent has sold for $75,000 to $115,000. $115,000 for a penny. Now the chances of finding one are incredibly slim. But they exist. And they are out there. So every single 1944 D penny you come across deserves a magnet test. A regular copper 1944 D will not stick to a magnet. But a steel 1944 D will stick immediately. If your 1944 D sticks to a magnet, stop everything. Get it authenticated. Because you might have just found a six-figure coin. But even if your 1944 D is regular copper, not steel, there is still value if you find the right condition. A 1944 D in MS65 red uncirculated condition is worth $15 to $35. In MS66, that number climbs to $50 to $100. And the finest MS67 examples have sold for over $400. There are also error varieties on regular copper 1944 D pennies. Doubled dies, repunched mint marks, and off-center strikes have all been documented. A 1944 D with a strong doubled die can bring $50 to $150, even in circulated condition. So what should you check right now if you have 1944 D wheat pennies? Step 1. Use a magnet. Does the coin stick? If yes, get it authenticated immediately, because you might have the steal error worth over $100,000. Step 2. If it does not stick, check the condition. Is the coin red and uncirculated or brown and worn? Red means premium. Step 3. Examine the coin under magnification. Look for doubling in the date or lettering. Check the D mint mark. Does it look repunched? A common circulated 1944 D copper penny is worth 10 to 20 cents. A high-grade red example is worth $15 to $400. But the 1944 D steel cent, the wrong planchet error, is worth $75,000 to $115,000. This is a World War II coin made from recycled shell casings. It carries history in its metal. And if you find the steel version, you are holding one of the most valuable pennies in existence. Now we move to the final two coins, 1945 D and 1946 D. And this is where I told you things were going to get serious. Because these 2 years have errors and varieties that collectors will pay 5 figures for. The war is ending, production is changing, and mistakes are happening. Let me show you what to look for on these last 2 coins. Coin number 3, the 1945 D wheat penny from Denver. The year is 1945. World War II is coming to an end. Germany surrenders in May. Japan surrenders in August. After years of global conflict, the war is finally over. And back home in America, the U.S. Mint is still striking millions of wheat pennies to support the economy as it transitions from wartime production back to peacetime. The Denver Mint struck over 266 million wheat pennies in 1945. These coins were made from recycled World War II shell casings, just like 1944. Every penny carries the metal of war in its copper. Now in circulated condition, a regular 1945 D wheat penny is worth about 10 to 20 cents. Nothing special. But just like 1944, there is a major error hiding in 1945 that changes everything. During the transition back to full copper production in 1945, a small number of steel planchets, leftover blanks from the 1943 steel cent production, accidentally got mixed into the copper batches. Some 1945 pennies were struck on steel by mistake. The 1945 steel cent is one of the rarest errors in the wheat penny series. And the 1945 D steel cent from Denver is extremely rare, with only a few known examples in existence. A certified 1945 D steel cent has sold for $80,000 to $110,000 at major auctions. $110,000 for a penny from 1945. So just like 1944, every single 1945 D penny you find needs to be tested with a magnet. A regular copper 1945 D will not stick. But a steel 1945 D will stick immediately. And if it sticks, you need to get it authenticated because you are holding a coin worth 6 figures. But even beyond the steel error, there is something else that makes 1945 D incredibly valuable. The overdate variety. Some 1945 D pennies were struck using a die that was originally engraved as 1944 and then re-engraved as 1945. If you look very closely at the date under strong magnification, you can see traces of a 4 beneath the final 5 in the date. This is called the 1945 D over 1944 overdate error. The overdate is not easy to see with the naked eye. You need magnification. But if you find it, even in circulated condition, you are looking at a coin worth $200 to $800 depending on how clear the overdate is and the overall condition. In high grades, the 1945 D overdate variety has sold for over $2,000. And then there are the standard double die errors on 1945 D pennies. Some coins show doubling in the word liberty, the date, or I in God we trust. A 1945 D with a strong double die can bring $50 to $200. So what should you check right now if you have 1945 D wheat pennies? Step 1. Magnet test. Does the coin stick to a magnet? If yes, you might have the steel error worth over $100,000. Get it authenticated immediately. Step 2. Examine the date under strong magnification. Look very closely at the final 5 in 1945. Do you see any trace of a 4 underneath it? That is the overdate error worth hundreds to thousands. Step 3. Check for doubling in the lettering and date. Look for repunched mint marks where the D was stamped more than once. Step 4. Check the condition and color. Red uncirculated examples are worth far more than brown circulated coins. A common circulated 1945 D copper penny is worth 10 to 20 cents. A high-grade red example is worth $20 to $300. The overdate variety is worth $200 to $2,000. But the 1945 D steel cent, the wrong planchet error, is worth $80,000 to $110,000. This is a coin from the final year of World War II. It was struck as the world was celebrating victory. And if you find the steel version or the overdate, you are holding serious money. Now we finish with 1946 D, the year immediately after the war ended. And this coin has an error so dramatic, so visible, that once you know what to look for, you will never miss it again. This is the one I have been building up to. Let me show you the final piece. Coin number 4, the 1946 D wheat penny from Denver. The year is 1946. World War II is over. Soldiers are coming home. America is entering a new era of peace and prosperity. And the Denver Mint struck over 315 million wheat pennies as the country transitioned into the post-war economy. Most 1946 D pennies are worth about 10 to 20 cents in circulated condition. But here is where 1946 D becomes legendary. The 1946 D has what collectors call the D over S variety. During production, the Denver Mint accidentally used a die that had originally been prepared for San Francisco with an S mint mark punched into it. Someone realized the mistake and overpunched it with a D. The result, a 1946 penny with a D mint mark. But if you look closely under magnification, you can see traces of an S underneath the D. This is the 1946 D over S, and it is one of the most famous wheat penny varieties in existence. A 1946 D over S in circulated condition is worth $30 to $80. In better grades, you are looking at $100 to $200. In uncirculated condition, MS65 red can hit $1,000 to $2,000. And the finest examples have sold for over $10,000 at auction. $10,000 for a penny from 1946. So what should you check right now? Grab a magnifying glass and look at the D mint mark below the date. Look very closely. Do you see any trace of an S beneath or around the D? Even a slight shadow or curve? That is the D over S variety, worth hundreds to thousands. A common 1946 D is worth 10 to 20 cents. But the D over S variety is worth $30,000 to $10,000 depending on condition. This is the coin that closes out the World War II era wheat pennies. And if you find it, you are holding one of the most sought-after varieties in the entire series. So there you have it. 4 wheat pennies from the 1940s, all tied to World War II, all carrying history in their copper, and all with errors and varieties worth serious money. From 1941 at the start of the war to 1946 in the first year of peace. These coins tell the story of America during its most challenging time. If this video helped you, hit that like button and subscribe for more finds. Now go check your wheat pennies. You might be holding a piece of history worth thousands.